If you like my videos, don't forget to follow me on social media to keep up to date with all the latest news regarding my channel and my content. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe below or at the end of the video. Don't forget to check out my brand new Amazon store, filled with recommendations on Blu-rays, DVDs, books, and other media featured in my videos. G'day guys, Dave Lee coming at you once again from Down Under with another movie review. In this video we'll be taking a look at the latest release from Marvel Studios and the Walt Disney Company, and the latest installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Directed by Ryan Coogler and starring Chadwick Boseman, Michael B. Jordan, Lupita Nyong'o, Danai Gurira, Martin Freeman, Andy Serkis, Forrest Whitaker, and Angela Basset. It is Marvel's Black Panther. Black Panther marks the solo movie debut of Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa, the Black Panther, following his introductory appearance in 2016's Captain America: Civil War. Following his father's death, T'Challa returns home to the African nation of Wakanda, a reclusive and technologically advanced civilization, to ascend the throne of king. After his royal succession and appointment as the Black Panther, the nation's protector and guardian, T'Challa faces two adversaries who conspire to bring destruction and devastation to his homeland. Decades-old Wakandan enemy, Ulysses Claw, a black market dealer of arms and smuggler of Wakanda's precious alloy vibranium, wishes to expose the alleged hypocrisy of the nation. And Eric Killmonger, a Wakandan exile, plans to dethrone T'Challa and stage a revolution. Alongside his special forces of fierce warrior women, the Dora Milaje, and his new ally, CIA agent Everett K. Ross, T'Challa faces off against the two foes before Wakanda is dragged into an insurgency and a greater world war. Black Panther marks the 18th installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the last one we'll be getting before this April's Avengers Infinity War. While some MCU movies seem to only exist for the sake of furthering the narrative of the franchise, others tell smaller, more intimate stories which focus around an individual character and their world. Black Panther is a movie which fits in with the latter category. It's actually kind of a very strange move, considering this is the movie which precedes the biggest tentpole event blockbuster Marvel have released up until this point. But it is a move which is incredibly welcome. While it does feature a few little nods here and there towards Infinity War, just as Ant-Man did with Captain America: Civil War, Black Panther does very little to push the narrative of the MCU towards its next major chapter, instead focusing on the character of T'Challa and his homeworld of Wakanda. It is quite simply an origin movie which provides much needed character background, world building and exposition before we go into Avengers Infinity War, considering T'Challa and the Wakandans seem to be playing quite an important role in that movie. Putting time and effort into their characters and their worlds really is one of the things that Marvel does best. It really is a movie which could have been bogged down by universe building with a message that could have quite easily have been drowned out by forced hype for the next chapter in the saga, but it's one that's been given its own freedom to be its own thing and make its own statement. While I do love a little bit of grand universe building, quite honestly, my anticipation for Black Panther was kind of dulled just a little bit by the prospect that this movie could have been overshadowed by or focused on it too much. But thankfully, the wonderful storytellers over at Marvel allowed this to be the individual story that it always deserved to be. Black Panther is quite obviously one of the most unique movies in the MCU to date. A movie which features one of the most diverse casts, not only of any Marvel movie so far, but really of any major blockbuster movie ever made. It's a who's who of the greatest African-American actors in Hollywood right now, and truly one of the best casts assembled for a Marvel movie outside of its crossover extravaganzas. The movie is so beautifully inspired by its culture, and such a wonderful showcase of it, from its costume and set design to its score, soundtrack and soundscape, and its underlying motifs and symbolisms. Some of my favourite sequences in this movie involve this dreamlike world between life and death, where T'Challa travels to communicate with his deceased father. It's somewhat reminiscent of the communications between Simba and Mufasa in The Lion King, which was actually perhaps the last movie which celebrated African culture in this way before Black Panther, and that movie was released over 20 years ago. I completely admired the cultural aspect of this movie, and as someone who loves and appreciates African culture, I adored the fact that Marvel allowed director Ryan Coogler to be able to express and represent the culture in such an accurate and gorgeous way. And while the movie's diversity and culture is put front and center, never once does it impede or impact on Coogler's storytelling. It humbly exists to complement it. Black Panther would have to be the most respectful movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe up until this point, and as a result, it dials down on what's become known as Marvel humor. And look, while I do love my Marvel humor, I do think that in this movie it would have been completely out of place. Look, there is some humor here and there. There's a couple of moments that have a couple of little funny lines or whatever, but it only ever comes in when it's guided by the story. This is a very welcome and sensitive move, not only on behalf of Marvel, but from Coogler and his co-writer Joe Robert Cole. In less capable hands, I think this movie could have been an enormous mess, and I kind of feel like this is the exact reason why it's taken 10 years for Black Panther to finally get his spotlight in the MCU. I loved most of the characters in this movie. Chadwick Boseman is spectacular as T'Challa and delivers perhaps the best performance in a Marvel origin story next to Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man and Paul Rudd in Ant-Man. The movie's powerhouse women, Lupita and Nyong'o, Danai, Gurira, and newcomer Letita Wright are all absolute highlights of the movie. The Dora Milaje are quite seriously one of the coolest, most kick-ass and inspirational army of warriors I've ever seen on the screen. And when it comes time for Infinity War to roll around, I can't wait to see them take on Thanos' army alongside Cap and Bucky. Martin Freeman, as always, was a great deal of fun in the movie too, and I was actually surprised at just how big of a role he played in this movie. Likewise, Andy Serkis delivers a whole new layer to Claw, a character who was perhaps one of the strangest additions of Age of Ultron. Two performances I didn't feel were all that great were Forrest Whitaker, who almost feels like he's reprising his really weird Rogue One role, and surprisingly, Michael B. Jordan. While I am a big fan of Jordan, there's something here that doesn't make him feel like a suitable villain. Maybe it's because he hasn't played a villain on the screen before, but maybe it was more so the limited amount that he had to work with. This is just another villain which seems to have been plagued with the Marvel curse. He seems one-dimensional, with a slightly unbelievable, unrelatable, and little developed motive. The character sadly lacks great credibility. While the movie has a fairly solid narrative on the most part, sadly, with two major villains, well, three if you want to count M'Baku, the Great Gorilla, who kind of briefly drifts into the movie for a little bit, I kind of felt like the movie was trying to be a two-in-one, ultimately sacrificing one solid storyline for the sake of squishing two into the one movie. You can even pinpoint the moment in the movie where there's this narrative shift, and it's kind of almost like, oh, okay, so that's done now, and This is what's... Okay, are we still watching the same movie or what? I also thought the movie was maybe 15 minutes too long. There's a couple of moments where it kind of slows and drags out just a little bit. In hindsight, I think everything that was in this kind of deserved to be there. There's not a great deal or really anything that I would cut out altogether, but there's just a few moments that I think would have benefited from being maybe truncated just a little bit. At 2 hours and 15 minutes, Black Panther is the longest MCU origin story, clocking in around the same time as one of the studio's big tentpole event movies. While most MCU origin movies come in at around 2 hours, some a little bit less, some just a little bit more, the one that actually has the closest runtime to Black Panther was last year's Spider-Man Homecoming. It's a movie that has a runtime at only 2 minutes less than Black Panther, but it is a movie that I have always thought would have benefited from just a little bit of a shorter runtime. The first half, maybe 3/4 of Black Panther, are absolutely stellar. And even though the movie's final action sequence is one of the greatest sequences in a Marvel movie so far, I still kind of felt that the movie's final act was a little bit rushed, underdeveloped, and untidy, which is kind of odd considering the movie had such a long runtime. And it makes me wish even more that some of the movie's more middling moments were used to a greater effect. But that said, it's nothing that prevents this movie from being a good, if not very good, Marvel Cinematic Universe entry. But unfortunately, it's just something that holds it back from, in my personal opinion, being one of the greats. With that said, I would still give Black Panther a very reasonable 3.5 vibranium samples out of 5. Black Panther is exciting and innovative and a visually spectacular fun adventure with great performances all round. It's truly innovative and groundbreaking and a movie which is going to have an enormous impact on culture. A true cultural phenomenon, just one that unfortunately suffers the detriment of a long runtime and a messy final act. Thank you once again to my amazing friends over at the Walt Disney Company Australia for providing me with media passes to check out a super early screening of this movie for the purposes of this review. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate everything you do for me. You continue to go above and beyond for both myself and my channel. If you're a first time viewer of my channel and you've enjoyed this review and you'd like to see some more in the future, then please at the end of the video hit that big old subscribe button up on your screen. To all my regular viewers, thank you once again for joining me, and to absolutely everybody out there, don't forget to hit that like button down below. It does a great deal in getting my videos out there. Look guys, I hope I'll see you again soon. Until next time, take care, and I hope you have a marvelous day.